We are learning more about why President Trump left the NATO summit in Turkey on the old Air Force One instead of the new plane gifted to him by Qatar. Two sources tell NBC News the Secret Service urged the president to leave on the older plane, given the resumption of fighting between the U.S. and Iran and given the location of the summit. The flight path out of Turkey is within missile range of neighboring Iran, according to experts. A person familiar with the matter telling NBC News the new Qatari-donated plane does not have all the security measures that were on the old Air Force One. After landing in the UK on the old Air Force One, the president once again boarded the new Air Force One to fly back to Washington. He spoke to reporters while aboard, denying that he made the swap due to security concerns. But the decision has raised news questions about the speed at which the new Air Force One was retrofitted and rolled out. A White House official said earlier this year the Qatari plane wouldn't be ready until 2028. But the president began using it last week, starting with a trip to North Dakota. Joining me now is retired Secret Service Special Agent Bobby McDonald. Thank you so much for joining me. Really appreciate it.
Hey, Kristen, nice to see you again.
Great to see you. I want to start by getting your reaction to what transpired over the past 24 hours, the fact that the president swapped planes on his way back to the U.S.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of pieces of the puzzle that we don't know here yet and that we may not know out here in the real world with respect to what really happened here. My guess is that potentially there was some intelligence, some chatter that was heard while the president was over in Turkey, and a decision was made by the entities involved. You know, as well as anybody from being around us at the White House, that anytime the president moves, there's really three entities involved: the White House staff, which plans the events and in and around where he's going to be going, and then the Secret Service and the military that are involved in transportation, security, and continuity of government. So what I think may have happened here is that there was some intelligence that was received on the ground in Turkey. Those three entities got together and came up with the plan to move the new Air Force One to England prior to the president following in the old Air Force One. So I think there may have been a little deception here, or a little diversion on the part of our side of the House to maybe keep some other people in the dark with respect to nefarious activity.
Do you have any concerns about the speed with which this plane was put into commission, given that initially it wasn't going to be ready until 2028?
It's a tough question. It's a great question. I have to think that all of the entities involved, the Air Force, the military, the White House military office, made sure that that plane was spick and span as it was put together and put into service. I would find it incredibly hard to believe that any stone would be unturned with it, not turned over within that plane before it was to be put into service. So I'm a little leery about that, but again, not an expert in that area.
It was notable because President Trump spoke about Iran's desire to assassinate him yesterday while he was in Ankara for the NATO summit. Take a listen to a little bit of what he had to say.
I'd like you to address speculation that you're leaving Ankara not in the new Air Force One because of security concerns involving Iran. You've spoken today twice about them possibly assassinating you and possibly being successful. Did that concern have something to do with it?
Well, I speak about it a lot because, you know, the life of a president is very dangerous. I'm number one on the kill list for Iran. They're lovely people. I'm number one. So I don't know. I can't tell you that, but I don't really care because I'm doing my job and I'm doing it, I hope, better than anybody's ever done it.
Striking comments by the president. What do you make of them?
Well, look, the last couple of years have brought a lot of things to our attention with respect to Butler, with respect to down in Florida, with respect to him being on the heavy-duty watch list for things that are going on in Iran. I think the security that was implemented yesterday was with an overabundance of caution to make sure that we're sure that everything is going according to plan and that all the entities can move the president safely and get him home safely. And obviously that's what happened here. That's the bottom line. I'll leave it to you and your colleagues to figure out what may have happened behind the scenes here and how it all happened. But the bottom line is that the president got home safe, and that's what the Secret Service and those other entities are looking to do.
All right, Robert McDonald, thank you so very much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.